Vikings fans, there's a feeling around this team right now that's hard to ignore, and honestly, it doesn't feel normal. Not after everything this franchise has lived through. The noise around the quarterback room is getting louder by the day. Legends are facing impossible decisions. And now the purple and gold are about to take center stage with the whole football world watching. But buried inside all of that excitement is one question Vikings fans can't stop thinking about. Are we finally watching the beginning of something real? For years, there's been one presence in Minnesota that never needed attention to control the entire defense. No screaming, no spotlight chasing. Just instincts, intelligence, and that feeling every Vikings fan had whenever the ball was in the air that somehow number 22 already knew where it was going before the quarterback did. And now the reality is sitting right in front of us. Harrison Smith still hasn't decided whether he wants to come back for another season. That hits differently when you realize what this defense would lose beyond the stat sheet. Phil Mackey from SKOL North said what a lot of fans have quietly been thinking. Even if Harrison is operating at 70% physically compared to his prime, the football IQ alone changes everything about Brian Flores' defense. And honestly, he's right. Some players age out of the league. Harrison Smith evolved with it. Last season proved that. At 37 years old, he still put together a solid season with 2 interceptions, strong tackling numbers, and a passer rating allowed that showed quarterbacks still weren't comfortable attacking him. That part matters because Flores asks a lot mentally from his safeties, especially late in games when disguises and communication become everything. But stats barely scratch the surface with him anymore. This is about emotional leadership now. This is about having a coach on the field. When Flores disguises pressure looks or rotates coverage late, there's trust because Harrison understands every inch of what's happening. Younger guys settle down because he's there. The room feels calmer because he's there. And maybe the most emotional part of this entire situation is hearing rookie safety Jacoby Thomas already reaching out, hoping he gets the chance to learn from him directly. That tells you everything. The younger generation inside that locker room understands exactly who Harrison Smith is to this franchise. He's not just another veteran hanging around too long, he's part of the identity. But here's the part that should probably scare the rest of the NFC. This team might actually tempt him into one more ride. Kevin O'Connell has already proven this organization can win double-digit games even with inconsistent quarterback play. Now imagine being Harrison Smith, watching this roster come together, watching the weapons pile up offensively, watching Flores continue building a defense that finished the second half of last season absolutely suffocating teams. It becomes harder to walk away from that, especially if Kyler Murray or J.J. McCarthy elevates this offense to another level. You can almost picture it already. One last playoff run, one last shot at finally bringing a Lombardi trophy to Minnesota before riding off into the sunset. And honestly, that possibility feels a whole lot more believable than it did even a few months ago. Something shifted the second Minnesota made that quarterback move. You could feel it immediately across the league. Suddenly, national analysts stopped talking about the Vikings like some cute fringe playoff team and started talking about them like an actual threat again. And whether people want to admit it or not, most of that energy is connected directly to Kyler Murray. CBS Sports came out swinging this week, calling quarterback the defining reason the Vikings improved this offseason, and they pointed right at Murray as the centerpiece of it all. That's not small praise considering what this team dealt with under center last season. The offense fought through ugly stretches, protection issues, inconsistency, and moments where it honestly felt like Kevin O'Connell was dragging production out of thin air just to keep this team competitive. Yet somehow Minnesota still finished 9-8 with one of the league's best defenses carrying the fight late into the year. That's why this move has people paying attention. Now imagine injecting a quarterback with actual mobility, explosiveness, and creativity into that same structure. That's where this thing starts becoming dangerous. Jeremy Perellis from CBS pointed out something that should absolutely fire up Vikings fans. Kevin O'Connell has consistently elevated quarterbacks who weren't viewed as elite talents. So what happens if he finally gets his hands on somebody with Kyler's natural physical gifts? That's the gamble. That's the vision. And honestly, watching Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, and now Jawan Jennings paired with a quarterback who can extend plays with his legs feels terrifying for opposing defenses. It changes the geometry of the field. Suddenly, broken plays don't die anymore. They become explosive opportunities. Defenses can cover perfectly for 4 seconds and still get punished anyway. And then there's the emotional layer people probably aren't talking about enough. The 49ers matchup. You know that game already means something extra to Kyler Murray after years battling San Francisco inside the NFC West. He knows them. He's hurt them before. Jennings knows them too after spending years inside that building. Jordan Mason knows them. Byron Murphy knows them. There's history everywhere inside that matchup now. That's what makes this offseason feel different. These aren't random pieces being thrown together. There's connective tissue here. Familiarity, motivation, personal history. The Vikings aren't just building a roster, they're building emotional edge too. But even with all the growing hype around Murray, there's still this underlying tension hanging over the entire organization because everybody knows one thing. The quarterback story in Minnesota is nowhere close to settled yet. You can hear it in the way people talk about him now. Not with certainty, not with guarantees, more like cautious curiosity. Almost like the entire league is standing still waiting to see whether J.J. McCarthy is about to surprise everybody or quietly lose control of the future that once felt completely built for him. And honestly, I can't remember the last time a young Vikings quarterback entered a summer with this much pressure surrounding every single practice rep. Every update from camp is going to get dissected. Every throw is going to start conversations. Albert Breer said something this week that cut right to the heart of the situation. This is no longer about draft status. That part is over. Nobody inside that building cares where JJ was selected if Kyler Murray gives them a better chance to win games right now. That's harsh reality in the NFL, especially for a roster that believes it can contend immediately. And if we're being honest as Vikings fans, that changes the emotional equation around McCarthy completely. Before Murray arrived, patience felt possible. Development felt expected. Now, every throw matters. Every decision matters. Every training camp report is going to feel like life or death for half this fan base. But here's why I'm not ready to close the book on JJ either. Sometimes competition reveals something special inside young quarterbacks. Sometimes pressure creates clarity. Breer mentioned Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield figuring things out later after adversity hit them hard early in their careers. That happens in this league more than people admit. Growth is messy. Confidence gets broken before it gets rebuilt. And maybe McCarthy needed this challenge more than anybody realizes, because now there's nowhere to hide. Either he proves he belongs or he doesn't. That's the reality of walking into a locker room built to win now. Adam Schefter echoed that same feeling when he said he's not ready to write off JJ yet. That matters coming from somebody plugged into league conversations constantly. The Vikings still believe there's talent there. Kevin O'Connell still believes there's upside there. But belief alone doesn't win jobs anymore when you bring in somebody like Kyler Murray. And the fascinating part is that O'Connell might actually love this situation. Competition sharpens everything. The urgency inside practices changes. The locker room feels it. Coaches feel it. Veterans feel it. There's accountability immediately built into the quarterback room now. No entitlement, no automatic coronation, just football. And deep down, I think Vikings fans can respect that even if it creates emotional chaos. Because after decades of watching this franchise search for stability at quarterback, maybe the healthiest thing possible is finally making somebody earn it completely. Still, if this battle stays close deep into training camp, the pressure around this team is going to become impossible to ignore once preseason games start. And somehow, while all this quarterback chaos keeps dominating headlines, the national hype around Kyler Murray keeps getting louder anyway. Not just optimism anymore either. We're talking about people making serious statements now. Bart Scott came out and said he believes by the end of this season, Kyler Murray could be viewed as the best quarterback in the entire NFC North. Think about how wild that sounds for a second. That means surpassing Jared Goff after Detroit's rise, passing Jordan Love after Green Bay's momentum, outshining Caleb Williams and all the hype around Chicago's rebuild. That's not small talk. That's planting a flag. And honestly, as crazy as it sounds initially, you start looking at the situation and it becomes easier to understand why people are buying in so hard. Kevin O'Connell has quietly become one of the league's most respected offensive minds. Justin Jefferson remains the most dangerous receiver on the planet when healthy. Jordan Addison keeps evolving. TJ Hawkinson creates matchup nightmares. Then Minnesota adds somebody like Jawan Jennings, who brings physicality and attitude this offense desperately needed. Suddenly, Kyler Murray isn't walking into dysfunction anymore. He's walking into structure, talent, and expectations. That changes everything for a quarterback trying to reset his career trajectory. Damian Woody basically called this Kyler's job to lose, and that's becoming the dominant belief nationally whether Vikings fans fully accept it yet or not. The bigger question is whether Minnesota can unlock the version of Murray Arizona never consistently sustained, because we've seen flashes before. We've seen the explosive dual-threat nightmare version that made defenses panic. The injuries, instability, coaching turnover, and roster issues with the Cardinals constantly interrupted that growth. Maybe Minnesota becomes the place where all those unfinished pieces finally come together. And if that happens, this offense suddenly looks a whole lot scarier inside a division that already feels loaded. But there's another layer to all this uncertainty that deserves attention too. While the quarterback battle dominates headlines, the Vikings still don't officially have their long-term general manager situation resolved after moving on from Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah earlier this year. Rob Brzezinski has steadied things as interim, but the longer this search drags into late spring, the more fascinating the timing becomes, because whoever eventually takes over inherits enormous expectations immediately. This roster isn't rebuilding. This roster expects to compete right now. That changes the pressure entirely. One bad decision gets magnified when a fan base believes it's close. And if Kyler Murray really does explode under O'Connell the way some people believe he can, whoever steps into that front office role may suddenly find themselves managing one of the NFL's most emotionally charged contenders faster than anybody expected. There's something poetic about where this season is heading now. The Vikings aren't just preparing for another schedule. They're preparing for a spotlight that keeps getting bigger every single year. And when the NFL officially confirmed Minnesota will face the 49ers in Mexico City this season, it immediately felt larger than just another international game. You could feel the energy behind it instantly. The league knows what it's doing here. Historic franchise, massive fan bases, storylines everywhere. And honestly, there may not be a better matchup for global exposure than this version of the Vikings against San Francisco. The reaction from the team said it all. Vamos Vikings! That wasn't corporate PR noise. That felt like a franchise embracing how much larger its identity has become outside Minnesota. Back-to-back years with international appearances now. More global attention, more primetime exposure. The purple and gold are becoming one of the NFL's traveling brands, whether people realize it or not. And those games matter because the NFL doesn't hand out these showcase moments randomly anymore. But emotionally, this matchup carries weight beyond marketing. Kyler Murray gets another shot at a team he battled for years in Arizona. Jawan Jennings faces the franchise that developed him. Jordan Mason sees former teammates again. Byron Murphy knows the emotional temperature of those matchups too. And then there's Kevin O'Connell returning once more to face an organization where he once coached. Every layer of this game feels personal. That's what makes it dangerous. These aren't emotionless regular season reps. These are players carrying memories into that stadium. The NFL is also pushing harder than ever internationally with 9 games across multiple continents this season. That tells you exactly where the league is heading long term. More exposure, more overseas games, more global branding, and honestly, the Vikings feel perfectly positioned for that future. This fan base travels. This organization embraces big moments. But there's another side to it too. More travel, more pressure, more physical wear. Kevin O'Connell already navigated international games last season with mixed results before bouncing back. Now he has to manage it again while balancing a quarterback controversy, heightened expectations, and one of the toughest divisions in football. That's a lot to carry into the middle of a season, yet somehow, this entire situation still feels exciting instead of overwhelming. Maybe because for the first time in a long time, the Vikings don't feel like a team hoping to stay relevant. They feel like a team the league genuinely wants in the spotlight. And for fans who've spent decades carrying heartbreak with this franchise, that emotional shift matters more than people outside Minnesota probably understand. This is why being a Vikings fan never feels simple. Every ounce of hope comes attached to tension. Every exciting development carries uncertainty right beside it. But I'll say this, it's been a long time since this franchise felt this alive heading into a season. Harrison Smith might have one last run left. Kyler Murray might finally unlock his full potential. J.J. McCarthy might still fight his way into this story. And the entire football world is starting to pay attention to what's happening in Minnesota again. You can feel expectations building inside this fan base, whether people want to admit it or not. So now I want to hear from you, Purple Faithful. Who should be the starting quarterback when Week 1 arrives? And deep down, how far do you honestly believe this team can go? Because something about this offseason feels different. And Vikings fans know when momentum starts building like this, you hold on to it tight. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings. Let's go!